Call the CUB Board of Directors meeting to order. Seeing that there's no public comment, move on to approval of minutes. Minutes have been circulated. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Move on to the approval of vouchers. We have them in front of us and then in our packet. Do I hear a motion to approve the vouchers? Second?
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? I will pause for a moment to, anybody has any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Moving on to the approval of monthly reports for August, and I'll turn and yield time to General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We continue to do surprisingly well, especially in electric. And I'll just ask Dudley to make some comments if he doesn't care on the statements.
Sure, don't mind at all. The electric department had a net income of $354,000. That puts us at $662 for the year. Our forecast was $307, so we're $355 ahead. Combination between the sales being a little better than we expected and the margin being a little better, and the fact that our expenses are less than we expected is what makes that up. Water department is had a net income of $39,000. We're $14,000 behind the forecast. We had some unexpected aeration basin gears that we had to buy, and chains, and none of that stuff is cheap, and so that's where all that money went to. That's why the expenses running high. But overall, we're doing well, both departments.
So those are one-time.
Yeah, let me answer that. No. If you live long enough, everything you've got is a dinosaur.
Right.
And they say, oh, you still using that kind of thing? What a dinosaur that is. And it seems like we just bought it like 6 weeks ago, you know. But that is so corrosive at the wastewater treatment plant. What's in that basin, and especially the aerators, they go down, they have to empty that thing out. They've got to essentially screw in new ones each time. But it is so corrosive, it's a repetitive thing. It's when does that happen? If it's a scheduled time, because we do schedule those to take them all up and replace them all. But if it's a failure, then we've got to work on that.
I'm sorry,
right away.
I meant a non-recurring again this year item.
Yes, that's right. It should not happen this year.
But there is more that's gonna have to be done to that, because after they put that in, they found out another part is bad. So
I know they rebuilt the motor going into it. It's a constant, it's constant. And as soon as it's new, it's not new the next day.
You only have 2 of those basins out there, and you can't afford to let one go down. So they're gonna get this one fixed, and I think the plan is next year to fix the other one. So get it back to 100% instead of waiting on it to die. And that's all I've got, unless you got any specific questions.
Hey, yeah, one more question.
Okay.
Is that kind of ballpark, you know, kind of ballpark what the number is on that so far, Doug?
For that project,
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be another 30,000 on
Okay.
top of that to get
And
it complete.
what do we have so far into it?
14, something like
14,
that.
okay.
So,
It's the difference of whether we can capitalize it or expense, and that's what we'll look at too. We capitalize it, you won't see it on your bottom line.
But that's not budgeted for this year. That's kind of why. So, but the reason I'm asking is that I know we're all very sensitive to the water sewer side of this right now.
come out of the cash, but
Right.
not.
Well, it
not
still
the
flows through.
expense.
Okay.
But what the state looks at is the net. you
Net
know.
asset?
Yeah,
Okay.
net assets, which
Okay.
it won't affect that,
Okay, thank you.
okay?
Question.
Anything else, Doug?
Nope.
That's all we have, Mr. Chairman.
Move on to, thank you, move on to the project status report.
We'll need a approval for that.
Yeah,
Point of
I'm
order.
sorry, thank you. Do I hear approval for the monthly reports for August?
I'll make that motion.
Motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And now, on the project status report.
Yes, sir. What I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna highlight new projects, and then I've got all the information you want on any existing projects. I just feel it's repetitive, I go over the same thing all the time. I can tell you on that we finished this Westwood Valley Phase 2. It was scheduled for the end of October. We're going to finish the Tillery Road by the end of the month, and the Westwood Drive is on schedule to finish by December. But all of these we have gone to in detail when they were new, and I'll be glad to, if you have any questions on any one of them, I'll be happy to drill further down.
Anybody have any further questions or comments? Hearing none, General Manager, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next, that's all I have for project status, and obviously the next order of business you'll see is the purchase of a 15K power circuit breaker. We have two quality bids on this for Siemens and ABB, and we're recommending a low bid at $101,175 with the Utility Sales Agency. And I recommend that the board approve this circuit breaker.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
For a second? Second. Hearing a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to approval of work orders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first one for the board's consideration is electric work order 1195. It is a project that's going to replace about 0.8 of a mile of single-phase number 4 ACSR primary conductor with 3-phase 4-0 AAC aerial cable along Martin Road and Chestnut Ridge, and that's off of Raccoon Valley in Knox County. This line is one of the most heavily loaded single-phase lines, and this upgrade will also provide additional capacity, better reliability, and the ability to better balance our system. The second phase of this project will complete a tie-in between Raccoon Valley and Hines Creek Road and give us greater flexibility and options when it comes to routine switching and also our automated Flizzer system. This is in the northeastern corner of our system, and the initial estimate included in your capital budget that was approved $240,000. And after the final engineering, our final estimate, including a 10% contingency, is a little bit less than that at $237,138. And I recommend the board approve work order 1195 4-0 AAC aerial cable on Martin Road Phase 2.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
So having a motion and a second, does anybody have any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The second work order for the board's consideration is also electric, number 1210, and this is 3-0 ACSR Edmonds Drive Lane Upgrade. This project will replace approximately 0.9 of a mile of 3-phase number 4 copper primary with 3-0 ACSR primary conductors along Edmonds Drive in Oliver Springs. This line is one of the most heavily loaded copper 3-phase lines, and a lot of times you're going to hear me say heavily loaded. One of our most heavily loaded. It's almost a mantra, because what we do is we focus on and identify those loaded conductors. So those are the ones we go after first. Those are the ones we go after every year. Those are the ones that we identify in a 5-year window project that we look at. What can we anticipate? And as subdivisions come up or industry comes up and those lines load, it sometimes affects what we do next. But almost all of the conductor replacement that we do is because it's heavily loaded and it's very old. And what we're trying to do is bring it back up to an acceptable level, because the heat, the loading sags the wire, and we're limited in what we can do. And the fact that we continuously are improving on our Flizzer system, it gives us capabilities to do the switching that we need to in order to keep the high level of reliability of our electric service. So this is a heavily loaded three-phase copper line. And this upgrade will give us the capacity to improve reliability, greater flexibility. And the initial estimate for this project, when we budgeted this year, was $175,000. After we went into the field and engineered, we're raising that estimate, which includes a 10% contingency, from $175,000 to $194,909. Mr. Chairman, I recommend the board approve Work Order 1210.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Hearing a motion, is there a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. On to approval of CUB pension plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a fiduciary oversight. You should have received something in your board packet. I don't know, it was 90-some pages. I hope you enjoyed perusing through that, because Dudley and I had to sit through it. So Dud, you're always more articulate
Well, we
on
do
this.
these every quarter, and it's to see how our plan's doing. They make recommendations for any changes we need to make in our investments. If you go to, take you to page 44 here. Had it there for you. We started the quarter at 11 million. Our ending balance was 13,000,009. I looked it up as of the end of yesterday. It was 15,165. So we've bounced back good from that big dip we had early in the year. 2 million gains in a quarter. You know, that's pretty doggone good. So that's why we love these guys. They seem to know better than I do on my personal investments how to do this. And then they go through and so this chart right here shows you where we're at here for you. So plan performance for the past year is 160, which is pretty good considering the progress that we had, the setback we had. And 10 years, we're at 737, which is right on target with what we like to do, what we allocate for. So, and if you look at compared to the benchmarks, it's done real well. I count on my buddy, Mr. Chairman, there to help us keep a close eyeball on some of this too.
Yeah, the year-to-date number, so this was as of, this is going off of June, yeah. So the next was one of the best months that the stock market had in the last 40 years. So that year-to-date number at that point in time is respectable. You're always going to be able to find somebody that did a little better or did a lot worse. So I think, again, that the asset allocation is appropriate. The returns have been acceptable. I don't have any comments, and I would ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, discussion. Steve, anything? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Now on to the approval of the TVA pandemic relief.
I promised you last month that I would make a recommendation this month on this pandemic relief, and I hope the board will indulge me just a couple of minutes, because I would like to refresh your understanding of what was done and give you a sense of the hoops that we went through in order to provide you what I think is an appropriate recommendation as we move forward. It's essentially a gift from TVA, and of course all gifts come wrapped in different things, and this is no different than that. You know, TVA passed this pandemic relief credit, or PRC, and it's designed to give us a credit on our monthly wholesale bill. So each month we'll see a credit that that will reduce our actual cost for power that we buy. So ideally, it then positively impacts your bottom line. And it's to be administered in two separate ways. What they call the Standard Service Pandemic Relief Credit and the BC&D or Non-Standard Pandemic Relief Credit. The Standard Service Relief Credit is 2.5% credit on the sum of the following items, as they put it. On-peak maximum demand, which doesn't include the fuel adjustment, but does include other adjustments, the maximum demand rate plus the adjustment amount, some of the on-peak energy units, the on-peak non-fuel energy rate plus adjustments, but it does not include the time of use adders, and the sum of off-peak unit energy units plus the adjustment, and does not include time of use adders, and the grid access charge plus any other adjustments. That's for the standard as it applies. For the non-standard, it calculates all independent the long-term partnership credit is not included in that, and it's on-peak maximum demand, and rate adders, on-peak, and the sum of on-peak energy units, Block 1, Block 2, and Block 3 of off-peak energy units, and non-fuel energy rate, plus the hydro debits. So what they're saying is a lot. It's not an easy thing. It's not, we're going to give you.
I hope somebody besides me understood this.
Well, we honestly went through, these are spreadsheets that we did, and this is 40-some pages of, well, it's more than that. It's a process that we went through in order to comply so we could determine what an appropriate credit would be. It's a big deal, is what I'm trying to say, and for the standard services, we have the option whether to pass it through or to keep it to reimburse us for costs that we've already incurred and potential future costs for the pandemic. For the non-standard, which is generally our bigger commercial and industrial customers, it's our bigger customers, we don't have the option to keep that. It is required that we pass that through to the end user for the big manufacturers. So, for the standard services, and Dudley's got, I mean, you can see how many pages worth of stuff we've got. These ribbons at the bottom are different spreadsheets. But we've calculated that we can anticipate, given all of this running through, somewhere just over $900,000 in this next year of what we'll see for standard service credit. 900 and some thousand. Pretty good feeling in that ballpark. For the non-standard, which are these larger industries, we see somewhere just north of $200,000. So anyway you look at it, you're about 1.1. Of that, we've got control over, say, 900,000. What we propose to do is to split that which we have control over, or the standard services, from the 2.5% credit that we see coming on the power bill. We propose that 1.25%, or 1/2 of that, be applied to these non-standard rates. Now, what that'll do is it affects residential, it affects small commercial barns and things like that, and small Burger Kings and that
Market
size.
Street.
That's right. All of that, even though they're commercial, they're going to receive a percentage of this credit. And we calculate that to be somewhere around $450,000 over this period of time. And again, they'll see that their bill will be reduced by this 1.25% or whatever that credit is, because actual makes a difference during the month, and that'll all be calculated. What I'm trying to give you is what we think our best estimate is, and then it'll become an actual number when we actually receive that credit from TVA. Does that make sense to everyone? So what I did and asked what Dudley did, I'll rephrase that. If I don't rephrase that, I'll hear it later. What Dudley did, what I asked Dudley to do and what he did is, because I wanted to get a sense and a feel for the equity of whether or not we're recovering our costs. And he pretty much, I had him stop at 600,000 that we could justify, which is considerably more than the 50%. So I think by offering this 50% relief to our customers, it's more than offset of what the actual cost does. In other words, it's costing us more than the 50% that we would get back. And I think that that's great. I think that that's fair. Some utilities aren't giving anything back, and we are proposing that we make this contribution and recognition. Since it is a gift to us, we want to share that gift to our members and our customers, and we think that that's the right way to go. And for reference, just so you'll know, which is where I think the relief ought to come from, is ETHRA. We just received $215,475 from ETHRA. That is to pay on 663 qualifying customers' bills, which is about $325 on their bill that they're getting. We receive this as a check from ETHRA, and then they give us a list of those qualifying folks, and then we apply that to the bill. Now, this is in addition to the Low Income Energy Assistance Program, which pays generally $500. So some of these in the most needy position, through ETHRA and through LEAP, what we call LEAP, it's over $800 worth of money allocated to their utility bill to help offset through this difficult time. So we're pleased with that. You couple that along with the suspension that we did of no late charges and no disconnects and things like that, I am pleased with how we've responded in a positive way in a difficult time for our customers. And I'm pleased with the way the government has responded in this difficult time. For those that are in the most vulnerable positions, I think that they're getting the relief. They're getting relief on their utility bill. And I think all of that's positive. In addition to that, we matched TVA's grant, if you will, and we worked with Project Assist and ADFAC. I think it was $10,000 in the first go round, and they've come up with another $10,000 matching grant, which I recommend that we also participate in. We'll come up with the $10,000, and TVA will match that, and we'll send this to this, which is a local company that also provides targeted assistance to needy folks. They have, and we've given them over the years, and mostly it's been employees here. We're up to $450,000, about $450,000 that we've made contributions, which we take off of. You make a contribution through your utility bill, and then we send in the check, and I think we maybe $2,000 or $3,000 a month or whatever it is. I know it's been so far this month. So we pay them, and then they target these folks, which is part of the resources we give some of our people when they call. I can't pay my bill. Well, then we give them these numbers to call, and then they go through the process of whether or not the determination, whether they're in fact needy or whether they're trying to game the system. You know, where we used to at church, we would give we would give money to benevolence committee. I chaired the benevolence committee at South Clinton. We made money that year. They didn't ask me to be on that committee any longer, but because of folks trying to game the system, this takes that out of our hands and say, if you need it, and that way they know the assistance you get from everywhere, that you're a deserving person, and then they provide these funds for you. And that's not only on electric, it's water and sewer, it's gas. They even bought wood, for folks that wood burning. So, two things. Number one is the board agrees to split this at 1.25% going forward. And if so, we have to get that in the TVA by tomorrow to make this October month work.
November billing.
For the November billing. And two, we'd like for the board to approve this $10,000 match that TVA is willing to match us up with in order to give it to AdFact.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion or anybody have any questions or follow-ups? Is everybody clear on what's? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. On to other business, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board. I'm very proud of what we're doing there. I think it's the right thing to do. Our chairman asked me to briefly review our deposits and what we do and how we do and how we arrive at that. And I thought it'd be worthwhile to refresh with some, and it may be new to some others. But we have a schedule of rules and regulations that we have to follow by contract with TVA. So we roll these out to TVA. TVA has to approve them through the contract that they have with us. And that's what we abide by. And part of that is their assurance that everybody gets treated equally. And there is no favoritism showed. So in our schedule of rules and regulations, a deposit or suitable guarantee shall be required of any customer before utility service is supplied. Upon termination, for example, of electric service, such deposit amounts may be applied by CUB against unpaid bills of the customer. In other words, when you terminate, if you still have, your deposit can be applied to that unpaid bill. If there's a remainder after that, which normally there wouldn't be for residential, then we'll send you a check. And if not, then you obviously owe the balance. CUB reserves the right to require additional deposit amounts should the amount usage increase or reflect collection efforts. So if, for example, you own a small store and your deposit was $150 because you just didn't have much going on there, and we charge you the $150, and then you had to upgrade your service because you put in a stove or something. Now you're doing kiln work and you've got a lot of usage going up, so you require an upgrade in service. Then we'll relook at that deposit to make sure it's sufficient to cover 2 months worth of potential electric service. This is on commercial, not residential. So we reserve that right to address additional deposit if the need or collection efforts require that. For residential, it hits is with your service is terminated. If your service is terminated, you become a credit risk, and therefore your deposit has to increase, because normal deposits for residential with good credit is $25, much, much lower than our friends just to the north of us, which charge residential customers 2 months average bills, which can be considerable, or the friends across the way that we're always compared to, LCUB, they're 4 times that amount. So for residential with good credit, we're at $25. For commercial customers, it's always 2 times the calculated highest bill, and always subject to review if we miss that mark. And we have in times where we shot it too low or we shot it too high, and then we'll try to adjust, because all we want is coverage. All we want is protection should they fail to pay their bill. And obviously, we do write-offs every year, so it's not like we're hitting 100% on this, but a lot less commercial customers, because we're very vigilant on that. If we're sitting with a $25 bill deposit for a residential customer, and they leave owing $600, there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
Greg,
about that.
can I give the board a little background real
Sure.
quick with it? So I was approached by a ratepayer, and he was questioning how this happened. So he opened up a business 8 months ago and put down a deposit. He opened up another another line of business, and they reviewed at that point the previous usage of power, as I understand it, at the first business location. Well, the usage of power was above what was initially expected and what was initially estimated. So to true that up, so we have an accurate, underwritten risk, that there was an increase at that point in his deposit. Obviously, he wasn't very happy with that. He said, wait a second. So if I, walk in here, how would you? And I understood. Now, he did say that we were very professional. We were very courteous. We were very good at explaining it. I think the individual just had heartburn about it. But having heard the policy, it makes perfect sense to me. We need to be truing up the risk every chance we get, because otherwise we're not adequately covered when it comes to if somebody were to up and leave town and go out of business. Another issue was arisen that, well, do you decrease it as much as you increase it? And I'll turn that over to.
No, normally we don't decrease it, but we would, because the flag becomes the whether there's a change in service or there's a collection effort. Normally we don't miss low. Do you say, normally that's not where but we have, there are instances I know of in the past where we have actually decreased it. Generally, that's predicated on a customer's request, saying, I'm not using that, or we're offline this thing here. When I first came to Cub, Magnet Mills had just closed down, and we took a hit when Magnet Mills closed down, when they went bankrupt. Then Business Envelope came in, and we were all thrilled because we finally had somebody back in doing some manufacturing. No security deposit was requested on them, nor was there one on Magnet Mills when they were here, because we were so thrilled. Jobs, we didn't want to scare anybody away. Well, that was great for the 7 months that they were in business, and then they went bankrupt, and then we took another hit, and then I became director, and then we didn't take any more hits, because all of the industries that we've had down, it used to be Armstrong Rubber and everything, down the industrial park, none of those had security deposits. And over the years we worked on that. When I chaired the DIC, which is Directors Insurance Company, Distributors Insurance Company, one of the things that we worked on was to get insurance for industries to cover their deposit, because other than a cash deposit, you can do a bond, an indemnity bond, you can do a letter of credit, you can do a cash escrow, give us a CD with your name and ours on it. There's a lot of things that you can do, but the other thing you can do is you can participate through this DIC insurance company, and at a very, very low cost, get coverage that you need that covers all utilities, electric, water, and sewer. So that's one of the things, and that's what we really peddled out to some of our good friends at the industry, which they picked up on in order to give us coverage. And to my knowledge, we cover all of those, and I don't know of anyone that doesn't have the security
We've hit these industries with significant increases when they're, they expand, SL expands,
Right.
that's a big increase. And we require them all to raise those security.
And in
costs.
the end of the day, the individual, take it down to a smaller business, they get that money back.
Sure, absolutely.
So it's
not,
not
yeah, it's not,
like
we
we're-
pay interest on it.
Put it in our pocket.
Yeah, we pay interest on it. We pay interest on all of
They
that.
charge it for rental houses too, so, I mean.
Right, well, right.
I have all my deposits out, so I mean.
Well, this past, 2 weeks ago, Ruby Tuesdays filed for bankruptcy. I got Kmart there in South Clinton, filed for bank. Did we lose anything there? No, we didn't. We're covered. So we're vigilant in order to protect the other ratepayers, because every time we write something off, somebody pays for that. When we do write-offs a year, although they're really great, when we do that once a year, the cost for that is borne by the 30,000 customers, paying customers that we have. So we try to be very nice, but we are vigilant in making sure that we have an appropriate, correct deposit that represents the time frame of our exposure, which we minimize to 2 months, although we've been exposed for.
Be more.
It could be more. Hey, let's start writing bad checks and things like that, or can you give me till next week, which we try to work with them. All of that's true, but that's our deal with deposits, and I'll be glad if anyone has a question on that to talk more about it.
Any questions? Does everybody understand? Yeah, good.
The other thing, as you may recall, we've been working with this I-75 Industrial Park water line extension. And we've been working that since the end of 2018. And part of that was predicated on, one, that it needs to get done, and two, that we had a 50% increase in our rate for what ACWA charges us. So we went through the process and we went through the application. We pulled the trigger really quick, trying to get an ARC grant, and we were unsuccessful, and that was in March of 2019 when we got that information back. And then we turned around to try to get an EDA grant, and we did that this past June, and we were unsuccessful in that because they said for lack of funds. But the good news is, and I think a lot of hard work, and our new director, Greg Jones, gets a lot of kudos, keeping that at the forefront of these folks. We've got friends down in Nashville, Lucas Blankenship, who we know, and is a friend of us, the state EDA, and Mitch Loomis, who has been working with us all throughout this process, East Tennessee Development District, great folks. They opened the door of a possibility of what I call a jaw-dropping grant. Now, the EDA grant and the ARC grant, we were looking at a 50% match, which we were prepared to do. But they said, because they got this application, although it wasn't funded under their public works, they asked us to resubmit under this EDA COVID, which is a different grant. And by them asking us to resubmit, we're already past that first gate, as they say. So we're gonna do that, and the beauty of that is, it's an 80-20. It's an 80-20. So the $3.5 million, because I'm estimate that it's about $3.5 million to get what we need up the road and get us the ability to get on either side of that. At an 80-20 match, we're looking at maybe $700,000, and we could do that standing on our heads. There'd be no borrowing any money to get that done. So we got to jump through the hoops, which I know everyone, and certainly the city, has helped us with, Roger and the mayor, because they're going to have to update all the resolutions, that's going to be required. We're going to have to do that here. I've got to execute another letter saying that the funds are available, and Mitch at ETDD, or EDTT, yeah, Mitch is going to help us through that process as we go through that. So heads up for you, Zach, and notice to the city that they're going to see some things that they thought they've already accomplished. This is a new opportunity for us, and I'm really excited that we're going to be able to get this thing.
And what stretch is that? Did you
That
say?
is coming. We don't have anything on the other side of the river, of the
Right,
Clinton.
going to the interstate.
And what I want to do is come around with a water line that'll get us all the way up to our service area, because there's a lot of that. Part of what the problem is, ACWA, because of the growth, now they don't have the facility that's going to be able to guarantee the volume that we need. So, I mean, they're either going to have to do some major capital investments, or we going to bring it up. I want to bring it up because of our rates, because it affects how industry looks at us, because that is a significant, potentially a significant part of what their manufacturing costs are, and our rates are less than half of what ACWA's is. So it positively impacts, what and how we do that, and also, we're concerned about the fire protection, and the volume in that. So there's a real need for us to be up there. There's our ratepayers can't shoulder that by ourselves, and that's why we've been working so hard to get a grant, and this is our best shot at getting something like that. We set this off, and they've already got that, and this application. So we're looking forward to, and I'll keep you up to speed. Other than you can let the city know that an expectation that we're continuing to pursue this, and they're going to see some things that they say, well, hey, didn't they just do that 2 months ago? And the fact is, we did.
When will we hear back from that for sure?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the for sure is, but the process is, because they've requested this, because generally you do a pre-qualification, as you know, and then if you can get past that gate, then they ask for the full-blown application. So I'm looking forward to the full-blown application. If we get to that, I think we're going to get it.
Good.
And they've seen it enough to where they know what the project is. I mean, I think they're supportive of us both times, because there were no funds available. And now with this COVID-19 EDA, there's a lot of funds available. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to dip into that pot. And the last thing, unless there's another question, the last thing I have is, I'm sure you will remember, that last month I reported the results on our annual safety audit, that CUB achieved a perfect score with over 300 specific compliance tests inspected. This month, it's almost like, what have you got for me this month? I received a letter from the State Department of Environment and Conservation Division of Water Resources. So this is the state, and it's dealing with our water plant. And they completed their on-site inspection, which included 599, this is, front and back, tests that they do. It's on system management and operations, operation compliance, the source. It's on treatment. It's on monitoring data verification, finished water storage, pumps and facilities, controls, distribution systems, cross connections, and all of these are rated. All of these have a range, and all of these have deductions that they make per line on what they test. And I'll just read to you what it said. What he said. It's a 3-page letter, very nice. In accordance with the manual and what was done, the Clinton water system earned 599 points out of a possible 599 points for a numerical score of 100%. So not one demerit, you know, on our whole water system. Of course, that's lead and everything else that goes to that, what we do, how we do it, and how it's done. It's an excellent score, and we are just really proud of that. Greg Jones is just thrilled beyond words, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. So that's all I have.
Steve, any questions, comments?
I'm good.
Madam?
Good.
Okay, and the only comment I'd have real quick, could you just shoot me a little blurb on that particular citation and then last month so I can reference it?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to close?
So moved.